No matter how old you are, no matter the color of your skin, whatever your desire, through God and prayer, you can achieve great things. This show was created to educate, inspire, and provide spiritual insight to fulfill God's purpose for your life. This is Aspire Today.
Welcome, Aspire Nation. This is Pastor Ron, and I'm your host for today's show. And man, what a show we have for you today. I tell you that I believe that this show is going to make you cry. It's going to inspire you. It's going to make you laugh. But most of all, it will be enlightening. We have a very, very special guest with us today. Minister Dwayne Proctor, two-time author, business owner, and just a great man of God overall. Minister Dwayne, welcome. We're so honored to have you here today, man.
And thanks for having me. I'm honored. I feel honored to be here.
You know, I was looking at the two literary works that God had you to write, Christian Business Principles and Tips by Dwayne Proctor. And what we're going to talk about today, From Prison to Pulpit. I can tell you this, I read this book from cover to cover. At one point, I started crying. At another point, I was laughing. At another point, it made me think of how great God is, how he just takes us from one extreme to the next. When others may count us out, God always factors in his love for us. And it was something that inspired my life. So I thank you for allowing God to use you to write this piece that I believe that will change so many people's lives. It's really a book that's just talking about your life from you being a young man up until the point of where you're at now. And so in one chapter of the book, you entitled it The Game. And I believe it began to talk about what happened with your life as a young man. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I entitled it The Game because, of course, I ended up getting into the game. But how I got there, of course, as you know, every young kid, we don't grow up saying we want to be a hustler or a drug dealer, at least not most of us anyway. And when I grew up, first my mom, we lived in Southeast. We ended up moving with my grandmom, from my grandmom to Maryland and back to Southeast. But during that journey, things weren't always rough. They were okay. My mom was a great provider.
Amen.
But something happened along the way to where we began to struggle. And it was when we moved back to Southeast. And during those times, there were occasions when my mom would literally put us to sleep because she had no food to feed us. You know, we would go to bed hungry. There was times where she would give us, say, she had $2, and it was a corner store. I remember like yesterday, go get a loaf of bread and $1 worth of bologna. Wow. And that would be our meals. Then, of course, going to school, kids can be cruel, and we got teased a lot. And I shared this with you before. They would call me Dirty Dwayne. And again, like it wasn't like we was dirty or anything like that. We took baths. We just didn't have the latest clothes, the Jordans or Timberlands or whatever was out. Yeah, whatever was out at that time. We just didn't have that.
Gotcha.
And so kids would tease us. And then so it was at that point where street life would become enticing. And I was that one that no one would expect to be in that life. Me and my mom was very close. Went to school, did well in school. Marching band, things like that. I actually wanted to be a doctor. That was my aspiration growing up, to be a doctor. But then again, we began to struggle. And then during that struggle, it started out with small things. I would go say like, had his big coat on, going to the 7-Eleven, and when nobody looking, stuff meat, packs of meat in my pocket.
Yeah, because you had to eat.
You got to eat, right? And so it's always, how could something you believe you're doing something good be something wrong?
Right.
You can't grasp that. I'm looking out for my family. That's all I'm thinking. My mom and my sisters, and we got to eat. And that's all you're thinking about. You're not thinking about the harm, the business owner, the harm you're causing him, the loss that you're causing that business. We don't think like that.
Right.
So people don't understand it's not a deliberate thing that we go out to say, I'm going to hurt this business owner or I'm going to hurt this person deliberately. It's just sometimes we don't know.
Right.
And so that was my course of survival. Then, of course, I can remember it was like this yesterday. I had a friend. His name was I'm not gonna say his name. I'm just throw it out. Just say Michael, just to say a name. And me and him used to hang out, and he's just experiencing the same thing I was experiencing. His mother was an alcoholic, abusive. So we grew up. Then one day, he knew about the drug game before I knew, and then it was like, well, I got a cousin. We can get a package from him, and we can go out and we can, get some money. And I was like, for real, how are we gonna do it? You gonna give it to us? You gonna give it to us? And then, but his cousin didn't. He thought we was too young. To his respect, he said no, but his cousin friend did.
Somehow you got that package in your hand.
We did. What was funny about it, you could tell we didn't belong in the game because when we did, as soon as we got the package, that same day, we got robbed.
Wow.
The same day.
I think that was God speaking to you then saying, this is not for you.
No, it's not, right? So we did not belong in that game at all, but we didn't know that. And I always tell a funny story because it's true. You get in the game, another ignorant part on my behalf, we out there, somebody say, jump out. So people run. I'm looking like, jump out.
Don't tell me you didn't run.
They run, so I run around the corner in front of the store and stop. Even the police walk up on me just laughing like, this can't be real. But, that's how ignorance. We never had a business in that type of lifestyle. Right. But then eventually you become good at it. So you think, and the enemy allow you to get away with certain things for so long. Right. And next thing you know, my first $100. Now, what did I go do? Of course, I'm buying food for my mom. What was the main thing that I wanted? Clothes.
Right.
Why? Because
something enticing.
And they tease me.
Right.
So you'll never tease me about dressing ever again. Never. So I became not just taking care of my family. I ended up becoming consumed with myself, so to speak, because now I had clothes, people complimenting me. Now you become sort of like, and I wasn't a bad dresser. I could do Ferragamo, Gucci, Gianfranco Ferré, all the names I knew because I deliberately you're not going to tease me anymore. And what's so funny, I may be jumping a little ahead because, God broke me from that. Delivered me. It's like now I go in the store and if I see $200 pair of shoes, I'm like, I'm not buying that. No. Unless I get a deal. I like nice things, but I know how to go to a thrift store and buy a $500 suit for $20, put in the cleaners and then get it altered. And people think you got a brand new suit on. No, I just got it from the cleaners. Hand me down, but you'll never know unless I told you, right?
And that's part of the game. And, as I was reading your book, all the things you just shared with our listening audience brought you to the point of an incident. And I distinctly remember growing up as a young man. I was born in Washington, D.C. Then we moved to a place called Sea Pleasant, Maryland, which was right on the border. And I remember so many people in the streets having a territorial mindset. And as I really began, I went through the first 100 pages without blinking. I was glued to it. And you begin to write about this incident that happened that began to change the trajectory of your life. And this incident, it was unfortunate. Share with me a little bit about, you wrote in the book that things that come full circle.
Mhm.
Share with us a little bit about this incident.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit. So, of course, got in the game, I became consumed. Of course, my partner in the book, my best friend, we were making money, literally. Like, we began to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, of course, when you begin to make money, you become a target, right? So I also talked about how New Yorkers will come down. Now, you have a lot of respect for them because they bold. They will come down and try to set up shop in your neighborhoods. And then, remember, you said talking about defending territory.
Right.
And if you don't stop them, they're going to take over and
Right.
run you out of
Right.
your own neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we would do. So of course, not only that, when you start to make money, you become a target. And I'm gonna be honest, Pastor Ron, I grew up, my brother taught me how to fight. My brother, he's an excellent fighter, but I wasn't him.
Right.
So I
You
might
who
fight
God
you, I
called
might
you
get
to.
knocked out. I'm just being honest. It ain't gonna go well like it did with him. So what happens? You start picking up weapons.
Right.
Because you gotta defend yourself.
Yeah.
In that game, you're gonna defend yourself. And next thing you know, I just bought a gun. It wasn't even to buy a gun to really do harm to nobody. My intent was not to do harm, but the gun is for protection.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
you never realize that you're gonna end up using it. And so I ended up using it because, and there's no excuse. Listen, I'm delivered from it, but I know in the end, I'm going to have to give an account for what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just talk about the incident and I would be transparent about it because, especially in this day, think about all the gun violence that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
People need to understand that when you take a life, you're going to lose your life, as I talked about in that book.
Mm-hmm.
And not only if you can either, somebody may retaliate, you lose your life that way, or you can get life in prison.
Right.
Or 20 to life, whatever.
Right.
But some people say, well, I might can do 20, 25 years in jail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna go back to your question. But
no,
okay, I can do 20, 25 years in prison, but there's a lot of psychological things that go along with that 25 years that you're gonna spend in prison.
Exactly.
And that's another thing that people don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced it all as far as that's, what I had to go through coming home mentally. So lo and behold, as I wrote in the book, I don't want to be a spoiler, so I'm not going to, tell everything how it transpired.
Mm-hmm.
That incident wasn't the first time that I've shot a gun. And so I had gotten to an incident with a guy, and I was standing on the front porch with a young lady, and the guy started bragging, or he was being rah-rah, as we call it. And I was like, okay. And then you didn't do a lot of talking. It's like, okay. He walked off and went to the store. By the time he had went to the store, I ran to my house and got my gun. Mm-hmm. And then as he was coming back, he was afar off. I shot. So I shot at him. And at that shot, I ran. So that was my first incident. But what happened, watch what happened. People began to say, and watch what the enemy do. Man, Wayne, they thought I shot him. I didn't shoot him. I shot at him. Wayne shot somebody. And then people start gravitating to you. What happened to
Reputation.
My ego started.
Mm-hmm.
I started being, I was the original Lil Wayne. That was Lil Wayne. No, really. I'm just, but seriously, that reputation started building.
Right.
My daughter, one of them, she can't even read the book because she said, I can't see that.
Right.
But that's who I was at that time.
Right.
Because now my reputation is growing, back to what you're saying. So now I would pull a gun out faster. It became like, oh, okay. Your chest stick out a little further, You start walking with a little more confidence, a little bolder. Then everybody start respecting you a little more. Mm-hmm. Then everybody start coming to you. It's like I used to fight for people. I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't even the best fighter, but people would be scared of me because they know I would shoot.
Yeah, I read in the book that
and I
you were
fight.
the one people came to in the neighborhood if something went wrong.
I would fight. I had one little guy just come get me. We go down there. I just fight. I know I literally had one incident where, and this is not giving Satan any glory at all,
Mm-hmm.
but I had one incident where it was a New Yorker. We had a conversation. Somebody called me and said, such and such outside, he has a gun on another friend of ours. I literally went outside, no gun, walked up to him and say, what you doing? And the guy was like, Lil Wayne, I'm saying he talking this, he this and that. This was a New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
I had no gun. But that's how my reputation was.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know if I had one, but I had no gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then he put his gun up and walked away.
I can tell you, listening to you, one thing came back to remembrance is you said one day you have to give an account. And as we were talking, God reminded me that Jesus has given an account for you.
Amen.
He has put his life on the line so that yours can be spared. And the good thing about our listening audience, I want you to know that no matter what you've went through, no matter what you've done, if you'll accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, he actually became sin for you. The Bible tells us that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for the ungodly. And so this is just something that I believe people really need to understand. We're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about how you felt when you heard the judge say 12 to 36 years for the man that you shot. And we're going to talk about that so that our audience can understand this plight from desperation and disaster to success. It's such an inspiration. So audience, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. And I promise you, you won't want to miss any of this episode. From Prison to Pulpit. It's on his website at www.DwayneProctor.com. That's DwayneProctor.com. Welcome back. I pray that first session blessed your life. I know that it blessed mine. I was on the edge of my seat listening to this man of God, just to see the power of God from where he was at, hearing his testimony to where he's at today. I know this man personally, and I can tell you that if you're not a believer, if you don't know that there is a creator, then this show will put you in a position to cry out and say, if God can do it for him, he can do it for me. So, yes. Minister Dwayne, we're talking about what happened. Unfortunately, you took another man's life. You had to pay a price for that, a hefty price. 12 to 36 years was what you heard. And as I was reading the book, I think for me, what I really got out of it is that after you heard that, what you said, and I want to read that to our audience because I think it really will help someone who may be tempted to do something that they shouldn't do. I believe that your testimony and things that you went to may help some other person not to make the same mistakes you made. And that's why we're here. So after you heard all of those things, 12 to 36 years, the gavel slams down, you see your surroundings, solid brick walls, 27 by 55-inch bunk bed with a mattress pad as thin as paper, cold cell, feeling lonely. You made this statement. I laid down on the bunk, curled up in the fetal position, and I cried like a baby. The man that I thought I was felt vulnerable. For the first time in years, I felt like a little boy. I longed for my mother, but she couldn't help me now, so I cried myself to sleep. Can you share with our viewers how that moment and how you felt? What was going through your mind and what drove you after knowing that you were going to go to prison? What drove you to not give up?
Yeah. So Pastor Ron, that was a very tough moment in my life.
I can imagine.
going to prison, no one grows up thinking that we're going to end up in prison or in jail,
That's
right? You can only go by what you see on television. And I remember my mom used to take us to see my sister's father at the time, but it's still not registering that he's locked up and he's done something bad. It's just not like, I've never made that connection. And then so after I got arrested, it was a lot of us that got arrested at that time. And I remember like it was yesterday, we were going for our initial hearing, our bond hearing, or to be let go for personal reconnaissance. And everybody that was arrested that day was let go except me.
Wow.
And gosh, I mean, I remember like having to go over to jail to be processed. And I never knew about a strip search.
Yeah, I read that. That was heavy, man. How do you feel about that? I mean,
that's humiliating.
Right.
Because when you get strip searched, I've never exposed myself like that.
Right.
To a man.
Right.
And you in to me, it's a cage full of men. Think about it, like animals.
Right.
Strip searched, arms up, mouth open, squat. And then, so I tried to make it my business to be last so that no one would see me.
Right.
Because I never wanted nobody to see that. And then eventually my time came when he called. And then later I would find that, they put you in a shower. They make everybody go through a shower.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, talk about being treated like cattle.
Right.
And this shower has chemicals in it.
Right.
To cleanse you of any lice or bugs and things like that.
Right.
And then so, was I afraid? It was something new to me. I mean, I know eventually I would have to toughen up and get past it, but I was nervous. I'm being honest. I was nervous. That doesn't take away from who I am.
Right.
But this is something new.
Right.
And you around and think about it. At that time, I was 125 pounds soaking wet.
Right.
And so in my mind, it's like now I'm automatically thinking, if something go down, how am I going to defend myself?
Right. Because you didn't have the gun then.
See, come on.
Right.
It's a whole different ball game.
Coming full circle, as you said.
It's a whole, because think about it, when you in that place now, you got to be able to know how to protect yourself differently.
Right.
Right. But there's certain things you can stay away from to protect yourself too. We'll get into that later.
Right. Right. And I believe that was the grace of God over your life during your time in prison.
It certainly was. Because I remember, get back to what you were saying. Then when I finally got in that cell, I'm in that cell by myself. And it's dark, gray, still, I wanted my mom. We so used to at that time calling our mother, our moms, because that's who I had. I didn't have a dad. Right. So my mom was the one that bailed me out of everything if I got into something.
As I read this and you had your book signing and so many people came to support you, and I was talking to your mom, and I remember certain points in the book, how God answered that. Mm-hmm. Even though it was years later, your mom was still there in your corner supporting you. Mm-hmm. And now you just, you have those freedoms, but you went through some things. Mm-hmm. I really admire your patience with yourself. I admire your inner resolve. And how honorable is it? And I'll say this before we have to go, and we're going to come back for another session. I mean, we're not nearly done, but you were trying to get past the fact of what you had done to the point that you kept saying, I'm not guilty. And there was a section in the book where you talked about the confession, whereas you were, and I want to read a part of this before we leave. And it was so just so impactful. you made the statement a year later and I was still there. The chances of me getting a bond were slim to none. And then you said, the hope was that one day soon, one of the officers would call my name to be released and not for a visit or to go to court. The funny part is I was expecting to get out, but I'm guilty of sin. I took a life. I was trying to find a way out. I was not ready to take responsibility for my own actions. And this is the part that really stuck to me. You said, what's even funnier is that I was trying to use God, who I didn't even know, to get me out of a situation because someone told me that Jesus could help me. I was almost in tears at this point.
Yeah, that's so good, because one of the first things they tell you, if you meet someone, go to the the prison church. They have prison church.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll hear people say, like, okay, Jesus can get you out of this. You hear these things in jail. You got guys that literally, they're a little more sincere than I was at that time, really sincere Christians, going to the church and they tell you, okay, God can get you out of anything. He can get you out of this. So for me, okay, I need God to get me out of this.
Right? And eventually he did.
Yes, he did.
But
not that when I wanted him to.
Yeah, you had to, when I read how you had to come to the point that you had to stop faking it.
Mm-hmm.
You had to come full circle. You had to confess that, hey, yes, I did this. But we're going to get into all that and more. Audience, I pray that this show is really opening up your eyes. You may not be in Minister Dwayne's situation, but you may know someone who has been or is in this situation. They may need encouragement. Tell them to get this book, From Prison to Pulpit. It's on his website at www.dwayneproctor.com. That's DWAYNEPROCTOR.com. DwayneProctor.com. We'll see you guys on the next episode. We're not nearly done. Be blessed.